Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to a beautiful morning here in East Texas. This video is going to be a little bit different than anything else I've done so far because I just wanted to take some time to strip down the barriers, take away the editing, and just come and sit outside and chat. Like, we're sitting around the fire, even though it's an early morning. The birds, I'm sure you can hear, are singing right in my ear. They want to be heard. But I think it's a beautiful morning to sit here together and talk. If this goes well, then maybe it'll become a series or something. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I was very ambitious. Adults always ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my answers were along the lines of, oh, I want to be a writer. I want to be a director. I want to be a lion tamer. Thing is, as I grew up, I never really grew out of those delusions. I still want to be a writer. I still want to be a director. There's a part of me that still wants to be a lion tamer at some point. I think that'd be pretty cool. But the thing is, when you're growing up, you don't realize what it takes to become those things. I, personally, just kind of always figured out that I'd get there someday, or it would just happen. And I just feel like if I felt that way, then there's a good chance other people do too. And so that's why I'm here. If you have ever felt like you have this dream or this idea of the person that you want to be, but you're stuck in a loop of doing the same thing over and over again, and you're unsure of how to break free of those habits, then grab a coffee, take a seat, let's chat for a little bit and see if we can learn anything from each other. I'm going to sit here and talk about what I've learned over the last couple of years. And if you have anything to add, then go ahead and drop it in the comments because I love learning from other people. I'm constantly looking for answers to this specific topic because this isn't something that I figured out. This isn't something that I'm trying to teach anybody. I'm just sitting down to tell you what I've learned and what I'm implementing currently in my life to break free of the, I don't want to say toxic patterns, but that's the phrase that comes to mind. Let's just simplify it and say that if you're not where you want to be and you want some ideas for how to get from where you are now to where you want to be, then this video is for you. I'm going to talk to you about what's worked for me, and if that helps anybody else, then I'll be happy. That's why I'm putting this out there. This is kind of already a topic I've broached in my first video. My first video was about being brave enough to start when you're bad at something and facing insecurities and fears of failure in the public eye. This is kind of adjacent to that, if not a deeper covering of that same topic. But as I've learned, I think most things in life are circular in that way. I think everything kind of revolves around each other, and a lot of the same concepts that you learn in one thing are repeated in other aspects of your life. And so we might hit that at different points when I'm talking, who knows. I am so sorry if these birds are insane because they're loud in my ear. I bet you they're crazy in this thing because this thing picks up everything. There's nothing I can do about it, and I am so sorry. This was the vibe. I thought it was going to be peaceful. I already tried to film this video once yesterday and everything went wrong, and so I have to start over today. Anyway, go get your coffee, have a seat, let's chat. Let's start with the problem that we often find ourselves facing. Like I said, I personally just believe that if I followed the traditional path of going to school, getting a job, I would somehow end up where I wanted to be. Now, I knew that I had to kind of aim my trajectory in the direction I wanted to go, but I never had a clear idea of exactly step by step how I was going to get from point A to point B. I kind of just did what I thought would be best in the moment. I ended up going to a state college, Texas A&M. I got my bachelor's degree in communication because that was the closest thing that I could think of to film and media. While also being realistic, if that failed and I had to do something in corporate that was along the lines of my strengths, which my strengths have always been along the creative route. So I went to Texas A&M, I got my degree in communication, and then I graduated in the middle of COVID and the world shut down. I had no idea what to do. I ended up getting a job working for my uncle as his administrative assistant. Then I worked there for 3 years, and in those 3 years I just started to spiral because I felt like I had completely lost control of my life. Everything was happening to me. I wasn't making any decisions. I was just being pulled with the wind, and I felt trapped. I just felt like life was out of my control, and the window of time that I had to chase after my dreams was growing smaller and smaller. But that's when I realized that life works like an algorithm. It's just like social media, how when you interact with the different posts and reels and shorts and memes and different creators that you follow, when you interact with those posts, the algorithm downloads that and it memorizes it, and then it brings you more of the same type of content because it knows that's what you're looking for. Well, life works the same way, and I say life because it's big and it's broad and that's what you see. But the reality is, it's your brain. Our brains are like a computer. The way that they operate, the way that they work, just like social media, your brain feeds you a loop of the things that you are looking for. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. If you look for proof that life is hard and unfair and your dreams are impossible, you'll find it. But if you shift your mindset, you change what you consume, and you shift what you focus on, your entire reality will begin to change. For example, I used to believe that my best trait was that I was easygoing, easy to get along with. I was down for anything, low maintenance. If you took me anywhere, I was not going to cause a problem. I think that that's part of that is still good. I think that that's a good way to be. It's good to be easy to get along with, all those things. Not take life too seriously. Look out for others to make sure everybody else is having a good time. It's good to be flexible. I'll just say that. It's good to be flexible. Not so uptight that everything has to go your way. But being easygoing is a state of mind and a state of being, not an action. I can't just sit here happy to go along with whatever comes and expect to get anywhere in life. And I can't expect my dreams to just happen, you know? So I had to actively switch my perspective, my orientation, my algorithm, I guess, towards becoming more action-oriented. And with that comes some sacrifices. With that comes me not being as easygoing as I used to be, because I have goals and I have dreams and I have things that I'm trying to do, and just going with whatever everybody else wants to do isn't going to get me closer to what I'm trying to achieve. Any sort of change that you make in your life comes with sacrifice, and that's the hard truth. If you're trying to change who you are or your outcomes or your destiny, whatever you want to call it, if you're trying to change your mindset, change your habits, change your outlook, you're going to have to make sacrifices. That means sometimes I have to put my foot down and say, no, I can't do that, or no, I don't want to, because I have something else that I'm working on. I have to invest my time here rather than going and hanging out or going and having a good time. I can't be the down for anything friend anymore because I have goals. But that doesn't mean that I'm losing my friendships. If anything, that means that the time that I do spend with my friends is more intentional. Making changes doesn't mean becoming a different person. It just means changing your actions so that they align with your goals. So how do we actually change our algorithm? How do we change what we're looking for and what we're feeding our mind? Well, first you've got to be intentional about what you consume. You can't just sit there on TikTok scrolling, downloading brain rot, because what you see is what you become. Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, because everything flows from it. And that's the exact same concept that I'm trying to leave here. What you take into yourself is what you give. So you have to be intentional about what you're letting into your heart, mind, and soul. And that's not just in a spiritual sense, like I referenced a Bible verse there, but that's just because it has probably the most truth of any book that's ever been written. The book of Proverbs alone, if you ever find yourself questioning life, just sit there and go through that book over and over again. Guard your heart, guard your mind, guard what you're consuming. And this is what I was just saying. It's not just a spiritual thing. I don't mean it in the sense of, oh, don't watch bad things or else you're going to be a bad person. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't believe that. What I'm saying is, if you want to be a writer, then consume writing content. What do writers do? What do they think about? How do they operate? How do their minds work? Become an expert on that topic. If you're going to be on TikTok, watch reels about writers and what they're doing, and that'll inspire you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sick. I've had this cold that is getting worse and worse for the past couple of weeks. That's why I wanted to just kind of sit down, do an easy video where I'm sitting down and talking. Little did I consider the fact that talking involved, talking, which is the thing I can't really do clearly. I don't remember if I was saying something there. My coughing threw me off. The second step for changing your algorithm, as I understand it and as I see it, is you've got to stop waiting for permission. I thought growing up that everything happened in a progression naturally. I thought that I would become a writer, director, whatever, by the time I was here, 26. And I had no plan for that. I just kind of figured it would happen. Maybe you're not like me. Maybe you're not as naive as that. But I think that a lot of people do get caught up in this idea that you graduate high school, you go to college, you get a job, you get married, you have a family. That's the path. I think I always knew that that wasn't going to be my path, but I still followed it anyway. I didn't end up anywhere that I wanted to be. I had to actively make the decision that I was going to try to shoot for more. I was going to do whatever it took to actually chase my goals rather than sit there waiting for them to come to me. You have to make that choice. You have to decide if you're going to actually get up and go towards what you want. Nobody is going to come knock on the door and say, hey, it's time. You can go now. You can really shoot for the stars. It's gonna work out, don't worry. Because even if you try to shoot for the stars, you may not reach them. There's that whole old saying, shoot for the stars, you can land on the moon, or shoot for the moon and you may land amongst the stars. And honestly, even if that's a cliche, I believe it. Even if I never become some sort of writer or director, I think I would rather have known that I tried than go through my life regretting the fact that I never gave it a shot. And when it comes down to it, my only real goal, the only thing that I really need in my life is to be a creative person. I need to create, I need to have an output of work that I am putting into the world. And I don't know to what capacity I would be content with along those lines. But at my core, that's what I know that I need. Whether or not anybody knows my name, I don't really care about that. I think I just care about the kind of life that I create for myself and my family and who I am in the greater scheme of things. Which brings me to number 3. You have to redefine what success looks like to you specifically. I have a lot of successful people in my family. That has caused me to put a lot of pressure on myself in what I do, because I know that everything I go for will be looked at and compared next to the others. Not that anybody's going to actively do that, but it just comes with the territory. I go over to my grandma's house, I just hear all about what all the others are doing. For example, I have 3 cousins who became surgeons. The cousin who is closest to me in age, he's like 11 months older than me, he went to Harvard, then he went and graduated top of his class in law school, and he's one of my very best friends. It's just crazy to see how different we are when it comes to our current circumstances. You know what? Like, it's true, comparison is the thief of joy, and I am so proud of my family and what they've accomplished. Honestly, whenever I sit back, take a step away, and look at everything big picture, I know that I wouldn't want to do what they're doing. I have no desire to be a surgeon. There was a minute there when in high school I was going to be a plastic surgeon. I thought, you know what, they're all doing that. All my other cousins around me decide they're going to be doctors too. That seems like the path. That seems like what we're all going to do. And so if I'm going to do it my way, if I'm going to be the creative version of that, I think I'm going to be a plastic surgeon. That seems to be the more artistic version of a doctor. And I think that this is like a side note. This is something that you need to be aware of. You have to know yourself very well. You need to know what makes you tick, who you are, what you need in order to thrive. And when I stripped myself down to the very core of my soul, I knew that I was never going to be a doctor. I was never going to go into this profession that is, 1, incredibly stressful, 2, highly intense. Honestly, I was just never going to do anything where somebody else's life was on the line. And that's just, I can't handle that. I don't handle stress well at all. And furthermore, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I think everybody looks for happiness, and I'm not trying to claim that that's was my goal ever, but you only live this life once, and it goes by in a flash. I've always believed that there's a sweet spot that I am made for. That might be a naive sentiment to think that you were destined for anything, and I'm not saying that you are, but I think that everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and there's a sweet spot, and some people find it, some people don't. I've always wanted to find mine, and that's kind of what this whole video is about, right? Is knowing who you are and shooting for that goal of becoming the best version of yourself. Bringing it back, once you've defined what success looks like for you, which I don't know if I ever eventually got to that, I had to redefine what success looks like for me. And like I said before, to me it is living a creative life. It is finding that sweet spot where all my strengths and weaknesses are balanced and I'm able to thrive, live out my purpose in life, and that is to love God and love people. I believe that the best way to do that is to fill your own cup, because you can't really take care of people whenever you're so concerned with yourself, and you can't take care of people if you have nothing to give. It's all a loop. It's all connected. So once you've defined your version of success, you need to just take small steps. That's kind of been my life motto for the last 3 to 4 years, is just, what's the next best step? How can I move a little bit closer to my dream? How can I move a little bit closer to the best version of myself, who I know I can be, who I know is creative, fun, and easygoing, who can love people well and live out the life that she was created for? How do I get one step closer to her? So that's step 3. And then step 4 is accepting the fact that discomfort is a part of growth. I was kind of talking a little bit about this in my first video. That was all about overcoming the fear of public failure, right? Overcoming the growing pains of starting something new. That's just how it is. When you try to change from one thing to another, there will be growing pains. There will be discomfort. Another cliche, the caterpillar turns into this pulp in the chrysalis before it becomes a butterfly. Everything's circular. Everything's connected. And if you're going to change your life, you have to push past what's uncomfortable to reach the highest version of yourself. And a lot of times that is where the most peace and joy comes from. My dad has this whole thing about the joy of overcoming, and that's what life is about, is the joy of overcoming. Happiness after having reached your goal, it lasts for like a second. My dad and his cousin and his basketball team just won the 3A boys basketball state championship of Texas. It was a big moment. It was really, really exciting. My dad's cousin, he's taken his basketball team to state 5 times, and this was the first time that he brought home the gold. Anytime you reach something like that, this huge moment, you're going to carry that with you. It's going to be something that you hold close and that you value. But the joy of that moment, it doesn't last as long as you would like for it to. You reach this peak of the happiness, and then from there you just slowly, it just settles. That goes with the whole sentiment of this too shall pass, right? No joy and no pain will ever last forever. It's reassuring, but it's also a little sad, which is why you have to find the joy in the overcoming. You have to find enjoyment in the process of becoming. I think that should be the goal, is to find ways to love the process. The achievement is just the cherry on top. Even once you achieve your goal, you should always have something that you're working for, always trying to become better. The process shouldn't ever stop. The process of becoming better should always be your next goal. I think it was Matthew McConaughey that said in that speech that his hero is him 10 years in the future. Like, he'll never be there. He'll become himself in 10 years in the future, but he will never be there. He's always just trying to become the best version of himself. I don't know if that's obvious or not, but that's kind of the goal and purpose of me starting this channel, is to become one step better than I was before. I've said it a couple times throughout this video, and I'll say it again. My goal personally is to become a creative person. I want to live a life in which I am giving more than I'm receiving. I want to live a life in which I am creating from my heart and soul and giving it to the world and trying to make the world just a little bit better than I found it. And before I started this channel, I was too afraid. I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid of being bad at creating. I was afraid of putting myself out there. By starting this channel, I'm just a little bit better than I was the day before. I'm getting used to facing criticism and answering questions that I don't want to answer because I may not have an answer yet. I am a work in progress. This is a conversation that I want to keep having. I don't have it figured out. I am still working on getting from point A to point B, and I want to keep documenting the process of overcoming perfectionism, not quite being happy with the things that I make, but putting them out there anyway, and hoping that at least one person can take something from this conversation, use it towards bettering their own life and becoming 1% better than they were the day before. And maybe this will become a series of sitting down and talking about where I'm at, where you're at, how things are progressing, where we want to go, what we're learning along the way as we try to get there. And if you have goals and dreams that you're trying to achieve and you're trying to find a way to reframe the way that you think or trying to reprogram your algorithm, then drop a comment down below and let's talk about it, because I'm putting this video out into the world. I want it to reach the people that it needs to reach. I don't believe that we are made to do life alone. I think that with social media comes a whole host of problems. There could be a whole other video over that. Oh my gosh. But I think that there's a lot of good that can come from it too. And one of those things is connection. And I think that we can really come together to inspire each other and work towards achieving our highest dreams, but more important than that, our highest selves. So if that sounds like you, if any of this has struck a chord, please subscribe if you haven't already. Let's continue this conversation. Let's work together towards becoming better, one step at a time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you for taking the time to sit and chat with me. I know that this video probably wasn't as attention grabbing as what I try to make normally, but this is just us sitting down, chatting over coffee in the early morning. And I really, really do appreciate your time. So thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you again, hopefully in the near future.